Assalamu alaikum. In this episode, we're going to be taking a journey into the astonishing mathematics of chapter the bees in the Quran. The amazing findings have never been revealed in English before. In fact, even in Arabic, the vast majority of people have never heard about them, and they truly are a game changer. So let's get started. Chapter An-Nahl, the bees, is chapter or surah number 16 and has 128 verses called ayat. The first surprise is that science has discovered and firmly established that male bees called drones have a total of 16 chromosomes, and the female workers in the queen bee have 16 pairs of chromosomes for a total of 32. Furthermore, the queen bee emerges as a bee from the egg in 16 days. This is totally shocking because no sane person can say that anyone knew how many DNA chromosomes bees had over 1400 years ago, when only very recently and through high-tech genetics this was discovered. But maybe someone will say that it is only by chance that the chapter the bees in the Quran is chapter number 16. So can we really display concretely the mathematical Quran connection in chapter the bees with the number 16 and specifically bees? The answer is an overwhelming yes. The number of verses in this chapter, as stated, is 128, which is a multiple of 16, as 16 times 8 equals 108. Even more surprising, and what I have never seen anyone highlight before, is that 8 is the total number of verses in the chapter that are multiples of 16. More about them later. Remember that the queen bee has 16 chromosomes, 2 times. Since she has a pair, we look at the total verses which contain the name of Allah 2 times, and they are exactly 16 verses. Furthermore, the verses of this chapter that contain the name of Allah are 64, and the verses that did not contain the name of Allah are also 64. In both cases, 64 is also a multiple of 16, as 16 times 4 equals 64. Collectively, this is a strong indication that a multiples of 16 may be an important thread to follow, so keep this in mind for later. The shortest verse in the entire chapter is verse number 16. Looking even closer at verse 16, in chapter 16, we notice that out of the entire alphabet, the Hija'i Arabic alphabet, there are exactly 16 letters that are not used in this verse. Then we look at the last verse in chapter 16, which is also a multiple of 16. We are surprised to see that it contains exactly 32 letters, which is equal to 16 plus 16 and equal to the queen bee's 16 pairs of chromosomes, which in total are 32 chromosomes. Furthermore, this verse contains 8 words, and multiplying the total letters in the verse, i.e. 32, by the total words gives us 128 plus 128. 128 is the number of the specific verse, and 128 is the total verses in this chapter. So far, it has become evident that the number 16 is strongly highlighted in chapter the bees, which itself is the 16th chapter, but we have still not looked at the key verse and the word within it, which the chapter itself is named after. Out of all the verses in the Quran, only one verse mentions the word the bees, and it is verse number 68. Looking closer at this verse, we are shocked to find that from the start of the verse until and including the word the bees, it is exactly 16 letters. And male bees, as already highlighted, have exactly 16 chromosomes, and their females and the queen have 16 pairs of chromosomes. And she takes from egg to emerging as bee 16 days. it gets even more shocking when we realize that out of all the letters in the Arabic alphabet, only 16 are used to make up this verse. So basically, verse the bees, which is the only verse in the Quran that mentions the word the bees, uses only 16 letters out of the entire alphabet. If this is not dramatic enough, think about this totally shocking and stunning discovery. The verse number we said was 68, and it contains 13 words. 68 multiplied by 13 equals 884. But what is 884? We are stunned to find that counting from the start of the chapter, the word the bees is exactly word number 884. I am compelled to repeat this. In the entire Quran, the only mention of the word the bees came in this verse as word number 884 in chapter the bees, and its verse number multiplied by the verse words equals exactly the order of this word in the chapter. This is breathtakingly miraculous and completely destroys all doubt. But for now we must move on. Yet do keep this number in mind, 884. We have looked at the shortest verse in chapter the bees, which was verse 16. But what about the longest verse? It is verse number 92. Amazingly, the longest verse in chapter the bees has a total of 32 words, which is the total number of chromosomes of the worker bees and the queen bee, with her 16 pairs of chromosomes, and of course 32 is 16 plus 16. Before leaving this verse, we take another look and find that the total letters for this verse is 131. But what can that be? In previous videos, I have often mentioned that the order of prime numbers is an important key in Quran mathematics. And the amazing surprise here is that 131 is a prime number, and its order amongst prime numbers is 32. The harmony of the mathematical code is truly amazing, and the mathematicians are still struggling to understand prime numbers, yet again and again, they are dominantly seen in the Quran code. In my book about this topic, I add a few more points here, but let's move on. We have looked at the shortest and longest verses, so going even deeper, the scholars looked at the first and last verses in chapter 16, which contain exactly 16 words, and they are verse 11 and verse 108. Their verse number total equals 114, which is the total number of chapters in the Quran and a main key in the Quran mathematics. Thus, their numerical connection is confirmed. Then we notice that both 11 and 103 are also prime numbers, with 11 being the 5th prime number and 103 the 27th prime number. Amazingly, we are surprised to find that 5 plus 27 again gives us 32. The stunning mathematical code is endless. Now also consider this. In Arabic, the word honey is asal, and this is its letters, common Hija'i alphabetic order. Their sum total is 53, which is a prime number, and its order amongst prime numbers is 16. The surprises are never ending. Now consider this and prepare yourself. Earlier, we saw many multiples of 16, including the number of verses in the chapter. We also said that chapter the bees is number 16, and the word the bees is word 884. But can we go even deeper in finding another relationship between 16 and 884? Looking at the Quran, we find that chapter 1 has no verse 16 because it's only 7 verses. Chapter 2 is the longest chapter and clearly has 16 verses. We continue doing this until we end up with all verses in the Quran that are verse number 16, within the chapter of course. They turn out to be 85 verses in the entire Quran that are verse number 16. Here is yet another mind-boggling discovery. The total words for all verses in the Quran that are verse number 16 is exactly 884 words. This is nothing short of breathtaking. Chapter 16 title is The Bees and is number 16, and all verses in the Quran that are number 16 have a total word count which it gives exactly the order number of the word the bees in chapter The Bees. The mathematical code is beyond words. Let's dig even deeper. We said the total words for all verses in the Quran that are number 16 is 884, which exactly matches the total number of words up to and including the word the bees in chapter The Bees, where it is word number 884 in this chapter, which is number 16. But what about the total letters for these verses? It turns out that the total letters in all verses of the Quran that are number 16 equals 3,769. 3,769. The stunning surprise is that the total of letters in chapter The Bees up to and including the verse The Bees, i.e. verse 68, is also exactly 3,769. This is totally shocking, so let me rephrase it. All verses 16 in the Quran have a total of 884 words, and from the start of chapter The Bees, the 16th chapter, up to and including the word The Bees, it's 884 words. And all verses 16 in the Quran have a total of 3,769 letters, and from the start of chapter 16 up to and including the verse of The Bees, it is exactly 3,769 letters. This is beyond perfection, and speechless is the only word that comes to mind. It is simply impossible for a human being to do this in a book that is also linguistically unchallengeable and perfect in every way, and was all done through oral recitation and memory, through a man who could not even read or write, through the Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's blessings and peace be upon him. Let me add another of my own findings to what the scholars have been finding. Let's note the following. The entire topic of bees throughout the Quran is only discussed in chapter The Bees in the following 2 verses. In chapter The Bees, this is the entire topic of the bees. The total words for these 2 verses that talk about the bees is 37. So the entire discussion of the bees ends with its word 37 in verse 69, which altogether are 3769. The shocking interconnectedness of the code is beyond words. Yet the Quran miracles are endless, so why not look at all the verses in chapter 16 that are multiples of 16? The researchers did, and of course they are verses 16, 32, 48, 64, 80, 96, 112, and 128. The sum total of all their words is 119. In previous videos, I mentioned the numerical value of words, and the shocking surprise is that when we look at the numerical value of the word the bees, it is 119. Then, to top it all off, the verses in the Quran that are multiples of 16, such as 32, 48, and so on, up to and including chapter 16, are a total of 119 verses. We have long passed the shocked stage and are simply in total amazement and challenged to fully comprehend this. And finally, as a bonus, I'll add the following. In these verses, Allah says subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He inspired that the bees take homes and eat and fly their paths and produce honey and so on. The interesting thing is that the verbs used were specifically female verbs, and they were ittakhidi, kuli, fasluki, and likewise, even other words such as the bee's lord is addressing female bees, and their stomachs is also the female form. Through scientific observation, it has been found out that indeed it is the female workers that perform these activities. As many sources clearly state, worker bees are females, but only the queen can lay eggs. It is female worker bees that have stingers and who forge and build the home by creating wax cells. Basically, it is the female bees that do all the work, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing best what He created, used only the female form of the words when addressing bees conducting such activities. Even though no one 1400 years ago knew about these specific bee-related gender roles. Go back and think about this shocking perfect mathematical code, which is truly breathtaking and simply impossible. Does anyone claim that over 1400 years ago, anyone knew the DNA code of bees and on purpose arranged the Quran and its chapters so that chapter the bees is number 16, and then also made within it a mathematical code for 16 and 32? The code itself is miraculous beyond human ability, even without considering that it was only recently that science uncovered advanced genetic techniques that revealed the numbers of chromosomes in living creatures. How can all verses numbered 16 in the entire Quran have exactly both the same number of words and letters as from the start of chapter the bees up to the word the bees and up to the verse the bees? It truly is nothing than the book of Allah, the all-knowing Creator, who promised that He will make His signs clear for all those who seek the truth. How can this impossible yet undeniable Quran exist? Allah answers this in the Quran. Say it has been revealed by He who knows every secret within the heavens and the earth. Indeed, He is ever forgiving and merciful. Subhanallah. Subhanallah, the all-knowing Creator. Please help get the word out. And as always, and it truly helps a lot, share this link with your friends. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and until next time, Assalamu alaikum.